The forest shivered under a cold wind, its leaves frozen mid-fall, twisting unnaturally like shadows caught between worlds. A gray mist clung to the gnarled trees, and the sun seemed reluctant to shine. Somewhere in the distance, a faint golden light glimmered through the fog, moving gracefully among the twisted trunks. It was Persephone. Her steps were calm, deliberate, yet with each motion, flowers bloomed, and leaves danced in the air, responding to her subtle power. But even her radiance could not mask the dark presence that descended behind her. The ground trembled, and a shadow tore open a portal to the underworld. Whispers echoed, low and chilling. "She is chosen, she is coming." And then silence fell, pregnant with suspense. Persephone had always felt a deep connection to the world around her, a bond to life itself. She wandered through sunlit gardens, her fingertips brushing petals that instantly blossomed. The air shimmered gently around her, as if the wind itself danced in delight at her presence. Birds paused mid-flight, singing in harmony with her steps, and the rivers sparkled brighter under her gaze. Every leaf, flower, and blade of grass seemed to recognize her as the living embodiment of nature's grace and beauty. Yet recently, a creeping imbalance disturbed her senses. Winter encroached too soon. Flowers withered where they should thrive, and rivers ran sluggish under the noon sun. The whispering wind seemed alive, hinting at her destiny, at a power beyond mortal reach. She was meant for more. She was destined to become the goddess of seasons, the one who would command life, death, and rebirth with grace and wisdom. Without warning, the shadows parted, and a figure emerged. Hades, lord of the underworld, his presence dark and commanding. Persephone did not falter. She studied him, sensing the rules of his realm, the strength in his aura, the limits of the darkness. Hades tried to intimidate her with his commanding gaze, the echo of the underworld trembling in his wake. But Persephone stood tall. A faint golden light radiated from her, swirling leaves resisting the shadows that sought to consume her. She was no ordinary mortal, and he knew it. The darkness hesitated around her brilliance, as though the very shadows feared the quiet strength within her. In that moment, the underworld itself seemed to pause, recognizing a power it could neither command nor extinguish. Then came the pomegranate. Hades offered her the fruit, the seeds glowing with a forbidden light. Each seed symbolized a choice: submission, destiny, power, and binding. Persephone's heart quickened, knowing the gravity of the moment. The crimson seeds shimmered like tiny embers in the dim halls of the underworld, holding promises both perilous and powerful. For an instant, time itself seemed to slow, as if the world waited to witness the choice that would shape her destiny. With deliberate grace, she ate the seeds, feeling their energy course through her veins, intertwining with the darkness around her. Suddenly, she could feel the pulse of life and death in the underworld, the flow of seasons across the realms. A quiet surge of power awakened within her, ancient and undeniable, as though the hidden rhythms of the world had begun to speak to her soul. In that profound moment, Persephone understood that she now stood between two realms, bound to both by a destiny far greater than she had ever imagined. Frost melted beneath her touch. Flowers erupted in shadowed halls, and autumn leaves danced where winter had claimed dominion. Her divine strength had awakened, a fusion of mortal courage and immortal power. The dim corridors of the underworld glimmered with unexpected life, as though nature itself answered the call of its new mistress. Even the ancient shadows seemed to retreat in quiet awe, sensing that a new and formidable force had risen among them. But awakening power brought trials. Spirits, ancient shadows, and guardians of the underworld rose to test her resolve. Persephone faced each challenge with intelligence and courage. With every confrontation, her confidence deepened, and the very air around her seemed to hum with her growing authority. Even the darkest corners of the underworld recoiled slightly, recognizing that she was no longer a mere mortal, but a force to be reckoned with. She conjured spring blooms in the dead of winter halls, orchestrated autumn leaves in shadowed corridors, and bent the very air and earth to her will. Every trial sharpened her understanding of life, death, and balance. With each challenge she faced, her confidence grew, steady and unshakable, like the turning of the seasons themselves. The ancient forces of the underworld watched in silence, realizing that Persephone was no longer merely learning. She was beginning to command. Even Hades, observing her mastery, could not hide his admiration. She was becoming not just a goddess, but the sovereign of seasons, a force that could no longer be contained. The halls of the underworld seemed to hum with her presence, as if the very walls acknowledged her authority. Every whisper of wind, every shifting shadow, bowed subtly to her command, marking her rise as a power both radiant and undeniable. Amid these trials, a subtle bond grew between her and Hades. Not romance born of desire or dependence, but of mutual respect and recognition. Words were exchanged, smiles shared, brief touches of hands that spoke volumes of admiration. In their silent understanding, a quiet strength formed, a connection built on trust, awareness, and the acknowledgement of each other's power. Even in the shadowed halls, their presence together radiated a harmony that softened the darkness around them. Persephone remained the master of her destiny. Hades stood beside her as an equal, intrigued, attentive, yet never commanding. Their connection was a quiet harmony amid the storm of the underworld. Together, they moved like two forces in balance, one of shadow, one of light, each strengthening the other without diminishing her authority. Even the restless spirits and ancient echoes seemed to pause in reverence, sensing the calm yet undeniable power of their alliance. As time passed, Persephone negotiated her fate, half the year in the mortal world, half in the underworld, ensuring balance between life and death. The seasons flowed naturally under her guidance. Her presence in each realm brought harmony. Rivers sparkled under spring skies. Forests blazed with autumn gold, and winter's hush fell gently where it belonged. All who witnessed her passage, mortal or immortal, felt the quiet assurance of a world perfectly held in the hands of a goddess. Spring was the first to answer her call. At her gentle command, the frozen earth stirred and awakened. Tiny buds pushed through the soil, flowers unfurled their delicate petals, and soft green leaves returned to the silent branches. Rivers began to sing again as melting snow fed their waters. Warm breezes carried the scent of blossoms across valleys and hills, and the world breathed with new life. Wherever Persephone walked, life followed. Fields bloomed, birds returned, and the earth rejoiced under the touch of its radiant queen. Then came summer, bright and powerful beneath her gaze. The sun blazed high in the sky, pouring golden light across the lands. Wheat fields swayed like oceans of gold. Fruits ripened on heavy branches, and vineyards stretched across sunlit hills. Bees hummed among flowers, and warm winds carried the laughter of life across forests and plains. Under Persephone's unseen guidance, the earth flourished with abundance, every tree heavy with promise, every meadow alive with color and movement. When Persephone turned her thoughts again, autumn slowly emerged. The air cooled, and the forests dressed themselves in robes of crimson, amber, and gold. Leaves drifted gently to the ground like falling embers, while harvest fields glowed beneath the fading sun. The world grew quieter, wiser, and more reflective. It was a season of gratitude and gentle endings, where the earth prepared itself for rest, guided by the calm and steady hand of its divine keeper. Finally came winter, silent and mysterious. A veil of frost spread across the land, and snow fell softly from pale skies, covering the world in silver stillness. Rivers slowed beneath sheets of ice, forests slept beneath white blankets, and the earth rested in peaceful silence. Yet even in this quiet season, Persephone's power endured. She watched from her throne between worlds, ensuring that the cold remained balanced and gentle, protecting the sleeping earth until life would awaken once more. Thus the seasons moved in perfect harmony beneath her rule. Spring awoke, summer flourished, autumn glowed, and winter rested, all guided by the unseen power of Persephone, the goddess who held the rhythm of life itself within her hands. Every leaf, every breeze, and every ray of sunlight seemed to dance in her presence, as if the world itself celebrated her mastery. Through her touch, the realms of mortals and immortals alike knew the serenity and majesty of a universe in perfect balance. Her legend endured. Persephone, radiant and formidable, became the goddess of seasons, revered by mortals and immortals alike. She was a symbol of courage, intelligence, and balance, a hero whose influence spanned both life and death. Hades, once a figure of fear, became her ally, witnessing her sovereignty with respect and awe. And though the whisper of romance lingered like a delicate shadow, it was her strength, her wisdom, and her mastery that defined her. She was Persephone, the eternal, the powerful, the queen of all seasons, a luminous force against darkness. Her light reached far beyond the underworld and mortal lands alike, touching hearts and inspiring courage wherever it shone. Every step she took, every breath she drew, carried the weight of destiny and the promise of balance restored. As the seasons continued their eternal cycle, a soft golden light bathed the forests and mountains alike. Flowers bowed in spring, snowflakes danced in winter, and the world moved in harmony under her watchful gaze. And for those who would hear her tale, a message lingered. Courage, wisdom, and balance could change the course of destiny. If you were captivated by the story of Persephone, the goddess of seasons, let her legend live on. Like, share, and subscribe to journey with us through more epic tales, where heroes rise, destiny unfolds, and magic awaits in every corner of the world. Remember, every like, share, and subscription keeps these legends alive, spreading wonder, courage, and timeless stories to hearts around the world.